In today's show, there's nothing more fun than getting excited about a second-round rookie in the preseason. So let's have some fun. Let's get excited. It's the season preview for Toumani Camara. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. Coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Make it a part of your daily routine. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's episode, we're continuing our Locked On Blazers countdown to tip-off with the latest installment of our season previews, running down every player on the roster, giving you a brief but thorough look at what they'll bring to the team this season. We start looking back, how they performed last season, how they wound up on the Blazers. Then we'll talk best and worst case scenarios in the second segment, and we'll finish with expectations of the likely role they'll play. If you've missed any of these, if you're a YouTube watcher, there's a playlist on YouTube that has all of them. This is our 12th player that we've done leading up to this season. We're going to get everybody once they finalize the roster. Don't worry, we'll even do one for Chauncey Billups. This is a capsule. For now, we're a week out from the season. You can spend however long that is, a couple hours, getting accustomed to getting my thoughts on every single player on the roster. I think plus Nazir Little has a bonus because we did one for him before he got traded. If you are a audio listener and not a YouTube listener, the shows are available in your feed. Today, we are getting hyped. Perhaps talking the steal of the draft, who is stealing your hearts. That's Toumani Camara. Let's talk all things Toumani. First of all, just a great pun name, just an exceptional pun name. And when someone like me, who likes to make bad jokes, is gifted someone with a good pun name, Toumani, whatever I want it to be, too many memes, too many puns. That's incredible. On top of that, if they're a fun basketball player to watch, it's a true gift. Let's get into what Toumani did and how he wound up on the Trailblazers. Toumani grew up in Brussels, Belgium. He spent his first 2 years. He moved to the United States at 16. He played high school basketball in Florida and was a top 100 recruit in his high school class. Played all 4 years of high school basketball in the United States and was a top 100 recruit in his class. Consensus 4-star guy, highly recruited D1 player. Ended up committing to Georgia in the same recruiting class as Anthony Edwards. Spent 2 years at Georgia. And then he was, flirting with going pro even after sophomore year because he had a really nice sophomore season, but instead quickly transferred to Dayton, a team that had recruited him initially in the process, and spent his final 2 seasons of his collegiate career at Dayton. His senior year at Dayton, he averaged, that was his last year in college, just recently, averaged 13.9 points, 8.6 boards, 1.7 assists, and 1.2 steals, shot 54.6% from the floor, including 36.9% from 3 and 66.9% from the free throw line. His first team All A-10, first team All Defense as a senior. He's one of the best players in the conference. And then he was invited to the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. The Portsmouth Invitational Tournament is specifically for the Toumani Camaras of the world. They're considering going pro. It's only for collegiate seniors. It is a showcase which every NBA team kind of watches the older crop of prospects play in before the NBA Combine. And from there, if you have standout showings, you can build off of that and potentially go pro. Toumani, because of when he was in college, had a 5th year of eligibility. So he could have gone back to school, but he had 27 in his first Pitt game. So, the Portsmouth Invitational is like just a classic place where guys make the second round of the NBA draft. He scored 27 in the first Pitt game. You make the All-Pitt team. Toumani's going in the second round. It's just clear that he's going to be that guy. Drafted 52nd overall by the Suns. plays in Phoenix in Summer League. And according to Brendan Clean, host of Locked On Suns, the Suns kind of built their Summer League team around featuring Toumani Camara. They're a team with not a lot of youth. They're going to sign basically all veteran minimum guys. And then Toumani, who they ended up signing to a 4-year, non-guaranteed in each season. You kind of earn it each year. Classic Daryl Morey special. Signed him to a 4-year, fully non-guaranteed contract and said, we think you can be part of the plan and we're going to give you Summer League to figure it out. Played in 4 Summer League games for the Suns as kind of their featured part. 16.3 points, 7 boards, 2 assists. Didn't shoot well from 3. 3 of 14 from 3. Is 14 3-point attempts in 4 Summer League games meaningful? No, it's not. But they didn't go in, and that's going to be a swing skill for him. Then he gets traded in the big trade. And he ends up on your Portland Trailblazers. As part of the deal that sent Damian Lillard to Milwaukee, he comes over from Phoenix along with DeAndre Ayton, and shows up the weekend of of media day, like right before training camp's going to kick off. He goes down to training camp, brand new, and then is suddenly part of the Blazers plans. You can never have too many 6'7" hard-nosed defending forwards with 7-foot wingspans who can shoot a little bit and defend a bunch of positions. But with Jabari Walker and with Chris Murray in tow, there is some sort of duplication of skill sets. But Toumani, even with the duplication of skill sets, or at least the duplication of type, easily stood out. He comes in his first preseason game against New Zealand Breakers and has a monster fourth quarter and scores 13 points, grabs 2 boards, and has 2 assists in the 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. Didn't really play in game 2 of the preseason, but comes out in game 3 and has a real role. He scores 13 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, hits 3 of 4 threes, and it's like, okay, this guy might not just be a player as a second round draft pick, but he could be something really special. Comes back in his last preseason game, 1 point, big struggle, -10 in his minutes, committed 5 fouls. This is, I don't think the preseason is that meaningful, right? If he'd had another really, really good game, I wouldn't say he has to start. But I think the up and down nature kind of gives you the sense of what it's like to be a young guy. There's some moments when Toumani Camara can really get it going, and it's, even in the very, very small sample we've seen him, easy to buy in very quickly. And then there's some moments where it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna have to adjust to this level. Maybe he can't guard Kevin Durant. That's I think that's the sort of two truths about watching young guys develop. Speaking of 2 truths, let's talk about the best and worst case scenario for Toumani Camara. I'm pretty hyped on him. I've really enjoyed watching him play. He's a toolsy lefty who gets after it on defense and can shoot a little bit. That's a fun type of player. That's the type of player I could easily get behind. You play hard. You're big, versatile defender who's got some offensive intrigue. Yeah, I'm into it. But let's talk best and worst case scenario. If it all goes well, what's it look like? And if it doesn't go well, what does that look like too? Let's set the polls for Toumani in the second segment. Before we do that, I want to tell you that this episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. Therapy can be a really great way to check in on yourself. It's a wonderful tool if you're having an acute traumatic event, a single episode or a series of episodes that causes you to seek out therapy. An incredibly valuable tool. But even if you're not having an acute traumatic event, a single moment that causes you to seek out therapy, just the routine maintenance of checking in with yourself and how you deal with everyday life and getting solutions to be better at dealing with the obvious bumps that are come along the way are super, super valuable, super helpful. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, you should give Betterhelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient and flexible. It's super quick to sign up, and then once you do, you can change therapists or figure out what works for you with no additional charge. So make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right. So let's talk best and worst case scenarios for Toumani Camara as promised. What we do in these season previews is we try to set the polls. These are best case scenarios within reason and worst case scenarios without injury. So we're probably not going to talk about Toumani Camara winning MVP, although I would like to because I've enjoyed the young man. But we're not going to talk about his body breaking down. It's what happens in between the lines, within reason and without injury. The best case scenario for Toumani Camara said he earns a spot early and never lets it go. And somewhere around the game 20 mark, the argument about his spot in the starting lineup is no longer preseason hype made by people with YouTube channels or Twitter accounts, but it's a legitimate talking point for all of those same people who've now watched him play for 20 games and have a real sample size to say, this dude can start in the league. The best case scenario is that Toumani Camara's athleticism and his shooting and his versatile defense and his general hard-nosed playing make him undeniable, and that by mid-season he is finishing games because he is too good to keep off the floor. The best case scenario is that all of the things you've seen from Toumani Camara, a willingness to put his nose in there and block shots at the rim, an anticipation to be in the passing lanes and even just deny passes, not let passes get through on defense, the abilities to play in transition, even as a trail shooter or as someone who can finish on the break, and a willingness to get in where you fit in makes him an ideal role player. The best case for Toumani Camara is that he is undeniable. And by that, I don't mean that he is going to be this dominant force. What I mean is that he is 23 years old. He's a 4-year college player. He's closer to what he's going to become than your average rookie. The Blazers' other rookies, obviously Chris Murray's in the same boat, but like the Blazers' other youngsters, Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson, are far away from what they're going to become. And that's their appeal, right? Is that you have a long runway for them to grow into something special, and they're going to be on the team for that whole run of it. Well, Toumani Camara's appeal is that he's closer to the finished product that he's already going to be, which makes him much closer to a plug and play useful part on a team that's trying to figure out what young parts they can plug and play. The reason that I believe Toumani Camara was appealing to the Suns is the same sort of Christian Braun thing that works for the Denver Nuggets. This is a copycat league. The Nuggets had been prioritized specifically with Christian Braun, drafting a experienced rookie. So they didn't have to wait for development. They said, okay, in a limited role, can you crush your limited role because you understand what that looks like? You're someone who's, grown in a college, in a high-level college program, and can figure out what winning looks like. And you can be, a contributor without having to do the star contributor stuff. You're not going to have to score to be a high-level contributor. Toumani fits that, right? He fits that. He defends, shoots a little bit. He doesn't make a ton of plays off the dribble. He's not this like elite-level playmaker. He's a 3 and D perfect sort of mold if he gets there. And so for a team like the Suns, wow, that has real appeal. That could be the thing you want because he's going to be helpful and he has role player skills. For the Blazers, it is maybe less valuable because the tail on their development path is longer. They're just working on a longer timeline, but it doesn't mean that at 23 he's ancient. It just means he might be valuable on a not as competitive team quickly. And the best case scenario is that it happens quickly. And when we get to the end of the season, to the mid-season, when the game is on the line, the Blazers put Toumani Camara in there and they're playing a switchable 6'8 defender with a 6'7 defender with a 7-foot wingspan alongside 2 smaller guards because what he brings, or maybe they're playing Shaedon Sharpe and they're just playing normal size shooting guard, playing what he brings defensively and as a role player on offense is undeniable. What's the worst case scenario? It's that he's a second round pick that takes a little bit of seasoning and that the Blazers' other similar forwards leapfrog him on the depth chart. Jabari Walker is just more valuable because of what he brings on defense. Chris Murray finally starts making shots, and the sort of idea of Chris Murray as a shooter finally comes to fruition, and that the sort of like size, similar skill sets, duplicative forwards kind of duplicate and do what Toumani is going to do a little bit better, and that he spends a lot of the season watching and a lot of the season being on the fringe of the rotation instead of someone who, spoiler, I anticipate playing a role early on in the season. He's someone who has to earn it, and by mid-season, he's merely someone who has cracked his way into the regular rotation and not cracked his way into the finishing lineup. To be clear on the finishing lineup stuff, that's the worst case scenario for Toumani Camara. To be clear on the finishing lineup stuff, the idea behind my best case scenario there is that the Blazers are going to need size, and having Camara and Grant and Ayton is nice size up front to complement what I assume will be Anthony Simons and Scoot closing out games, and that while Matisse Thybulle's is just a straight up much better defender than Toumani is right now, that perhaps Camara brings enough on defense that is different and impactful that the other things he might bring on offense and just the physicality, he's a little bit bigger, just like than Thybulle, not much, but a little bit bigger than Thybulle. He's like more of a 4, with Thybulle's more of a 2-3. He's more of a 3-4. That size difference gives the Blazers a front line that matters, and the trade-off between Thybulle's plus defense to decent defense with better offense makes it obvious, and the best case scenario is that Toumani Camara's on the court. Everybody finishes in the middle. That's the point of this. Why I make the polls is because I try to find the middle. With young guys, they're usually a little wider. Like this is like the worst case is he's out of the rotation. The best case is that he's in the closing lineup by January 3rd or whatever. I think the midseason usually is like MLK Day, so like January 20th. But I think for Toumani, there is going to be a chance for him to prove it early. And that's what I want to talk about in the third segment. Expectations and the role I'll think he'll play. Join me in the third segment. But first, I want to tell you about Gametime. Gametime is the spot for last-minute tickets. Say you want to go to a Blazer game coming up next week when the regular season starts. There is no better place when you decide day of that you want to go to a game than the Gametime app. What I really like about Gametime is that what you see is what you get. So many other ticket services, you find this great deal. Hey, we got a couple tickets downstairs. They're good seats. They're pretty cheap deal. You click through on them, and it's like a 35% increase by the time you get to checkout because you're paying a convenience fee and you're paying a print-at-home fee for something that's going to show up on your phone. Print at home? I'm opening up a PDF from a website. But Gametime doesn't have that nonsense. You open up the app, you look at the stadium, the little flags will come up wherever you want to sit. You can click on the seat and see the simulated view from that exact seat. And with that price that you see on the screen, $38 is the price you're going to pay when you go to checkout. They got flash deals, they got section deals. They're the number one place. And they specialize in last-minute tickets. So don't mess around with anywhere else. Go download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Still a pass, first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Let's talk role and expectations for your boy, Toumani Camara. So coming into the season, my introduction to Toumani Camara, I sat through his media day interview and I said, okay, great, like, cool, Belgium. That's a cool place to be from and play basketball. He went to a couple, D1 colleges. I scanned his box scores on Basketball Reference, but I didn't know anything about him. And then I talked with Brendan Clean. This is what I truly love about the Locked On Podcast Network is like Brendan had, covers the Suns, Locked On Suns, does a great job. Did a draft profile of him, had seen him and watched him closely and covered him in Summer League. And Brendan got me hyped. He said, 6'7", toolsy. The Suns committed a bunch of sort of like development energy into him. And I said, okay, I hear you. This is a player I could get behind. So I wanted to believe. Basically, from the moment I was chatting with Brendan, I wanted to believe. And some of his early play, I joked on this show against the New Zealand Breakers, is just confirmation bias, right? Like he played well in the fourth quarter against a non-NBA team, and I'm like, he's the truth. Didn't really play in the next game. That was the game I was at in person, the Suns game at the Moda Center, and then played pretty darn well against the in the third game of preseason against the Utah Jazz. Just like he's solid, right? Like he blocks shots, he gets steals. He's made his threes. He's 5 of 9 from 3 in preseason. Is 9 3-pointers the same way 14 in summer league, 9 3-pointers and four preseason games. Also not meaningful. Like we've not reached a critical mass in terms of him being a good shooter. He improved every year in college as a shooter, but like jury's out whether he's going to be a good NBA shooter. It looks pretty good coming out of his hand when he's a catch and shoot guy. I think lefties generally either their shots look awful or they look awesome. He's in the awesome side. You always notice a left-handed jump shot, at least I do, and it's like, ooh, that's weird. Or it's like smooth. He's in the smooth category. So like I kind of was like already trying to be on the hype train, and then Toumani was like, all aboard, whoop whoop, and so I was sort of predisposed to be excited about him. But I didn't think he was going to play. I really didn't. Even if I was going to be excited about him, I think I was just going to be excited about end of the bench guys, because that's kind of the attitude I'm trying to bring into what might be a challenging season, because I want this season to be fun. And if I am faking it, you will know. So I'm hyping myself up to be excited, right? Like I'm gonna bring genuine excitement, so you can bring genuine excitement. That's our bargain we have. But after watching him play and watching sort of the rest of the Blazers roster, I think Toumani Camara is going to play. I don't know. I'm willing to guess he will be a night one contributor, first game of the season contributor for the Portland Trail Blazers. I kind of already talked about this in yesterday's show, but it's worth repeating here. Typically, Chauncey Billups has played 9 guys. He's a 9+ coach. I think 9 is the right number for NBA coaches to play. 10 is fine. No one plays 11. Steven Silas last year played 12. You know who plays 11? It's like Steve Kerr, and Warriors fans get mad at him. But like 10 is the max. I think 9 is the right number. 8 is like what Nick Nurse plays. So 9 would be your typical sort of your the starters, and then off the bench, Malcolm Brogdon, Shaedon Sharpe, Rob Williams if he's healthy, or another big man, and Jabari Walker, but a center, so it could be Moses Brown, Duop Reath, whoever makes the team, and Jabari Walker. That'd be your 9. If they go 10, it's Toumani Camara. He's clearly the 10th best player. I don't think he outplayed Walker necessarily, but he has their different skill sets. Walker is a sort of a tougher rebounder. I think he has a better feel. Jabari Walker's not a great passer, but he's like has a little bit better of a feel. Toumani Camara is a more versatile defender and potentially a better shooter, although Walker has taken strides, at least, in getting his shot to look a lot better. Again, I have no idea if Camara can shoot at the NBA level. We're about to find out. But I think Camara would be 10, and I don't think he's leapfrog Walker yet, so I think he's going to be 10. But if I had to guess right now, Chauncey Billups will play 10 guys on night 1, and Camara will be that 10th guy. That's my expectation for. And if he doesn't, I think he's the 10th guy, and when there's foul trouble or it's just not your night type of thing, or someone has to pee during a quarter break and they don't get back out, I think it's Camara who is the next guy up right now. I think he's clearly ahead of Chris Murray and the rest of the Blazers. Either don't play that position, or like Ryan Rupert's just like not very close to that level. So I think he plays early on. I think he's the 10th man regardless, and I think he can grow into more of that. And I really hope, and I want to say this again, I really hope the Blazers are willing to let their young players grow. There is a tendency with coaches, and I've talked about this in previous shows and previous seasons, is to play low F-up guys. So that means like Billups might, and like to play the most effective players. And like Jeremy Grant is a lot better than Jabari Walker and Toumani Camara, like, magnitudes. I really hope that Chauncey Billups doesn't play Jeremy Grant like 41 minutes a night early in the season. The first 2 years of Billups, he absolutely would have done that. I hope not only has he learned from his first 2 years of coaching, but that he changes his approach dramatically in year 3 and just says, we're going to lose anyways. Like, like in the grand scheme, maybe not every night, but like in the grand scheme of the season, like we're not a team that wants to be competitive or is capable of being like hyper competitive. So, Jeremy Grant can play 36 minutes. And so there's 5 extra minutes to kind of float around the forward spots there. And I hope he takes the same approach with Thibault. And I hope he takes, I hope there's more flexibility with that, because if you're going to have to play Shaedon Sharpe some minutes at the 3, really the only minutes for Camara to play are at the backup 4, which means that you're kind of squeezing guys. Like someone is going to play a little bit less. And I hope the people who are playing a little bit less are the Malcolm Brogdons and are the Jeremy Grants, like are guys who are capable and effective, but are just not on the same sort of timeline and next iteration type players. Jeremy Grant's under contract for a few more seasons. He could be around for 5 years if they want him to be, but I think all of the speculation is that he is a short timer, and the same with Brogdon. And my hope is that Billups agrees, and he doesn't play the older guys. They're like, Jeremy Grant's not even 30 yet. He doesn't play the older players on the roster, the more veteran players on the roster, a bunch of minutes to ensure wins, because the wins don't matter. I hope the front office and Billups are on the same page there, and I hope the page they're on is like, let young players spread their wings. The other thing with Camara is that it'll be interesting to see if he gets, I think I've used this before, but there's sort of like only so much development investment you can have. It'll be interesting to see whether the Blazers put that sort of those investment, whether that's minutes and things like that, specifically minutes for young players. It's some other things for like stars, like the way you kind of like give them second chances and, announce their name last in lineups and stuff like that. I don't think Scoot's going to get that treatment, but certainly some players do. But like, it'd be interesting if he leapfrogs Chris Murray in sort of that prioritization. And it'd be interesting if he ever leapfrogs Jabari Walker in that prioritization, because in our hearts, it's an egalitarian system. But in the way it works with money and contracts, it's not always egalitarian. And I think Walker and Murray and Camara are very similar levels. I think Walker and Camara are a little better than Murray. Other people have been more excited about Chris Murray than I have in the preseason. So if you're excited, I think I'm not trying to yuck your yum, but just like from my personal view, Walker and Camara have been better than Chris Murray. So it'll be interesting to see who gets that sort of franchise investment if they do end up having to make a choice. If they only go 9 deep, or if 10 deep with the sort of duplication of the spots and having to play, and not needing center minutes and not having spots for Shaedon Sharpe to play at the 2, so they got to move up to 3. It'll be interesting to see which young forward gets those minutes. I think Camara has earned an opportunity to at least try his hand early in the season. I think he's the 10th guy. And the question is, do they play 10? And if they play 10, is his role 8 minutes? And if he plays, one 6.5 minute shift in the first half, can you show enough to earn a second one? That'll be the curious part for him. I'm excited about Toumani. I think he can really, really be a contributor, because I think he has role player skills right away. And also, just another extremely funny thing is that Blazer fans just comparing him to Scottie Pippen, and that's fun. That's a fun thing to do. He's Scottie Pippen. You show up, 23, 52nd pick in the draft, rookie. Didn't even play on the summer league team. Showed up right before media day. Pippen. That's Scottie Pippen. I love it. It's fun. It's fun to root for. It's fun to root for sort of young guys to figure it out. And Toumani has been someone who I think is going to be really easy to root for. And hopefully he gets to figure it out. That is today's preview episode. do me a favor, come back for tomorrow's show. We'll talk about Chauncey Billups. Friday's show, again, I'm trying to nail down an interview, but I think it's going to be a fun one, and I will tell you tomorrow who it's going to be and whether that's going to be Friday or Monday's show. That's going to do it. Tell your friends. Check out the other previews if you've missed them. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.